The next item on the agenda is an update on LD 1310. And I'm hoping Curtis can give us some background on this. As many of you know, there are about 14 bills that have come to the legislature this session on water extraction. And about halfway through the bill referencing, it became clear that probably all of them should go to one committee so that one committee could look at all of them in their entirety. And so they started going to Natural Resources, the Natural Resources Committee. And they met a couple weeks ago and made some decisions about how they wanted to handle these bills. And there are significant implications for this commission. So Curtis, I hope, will be able to bring us up to date in terms of what's happening and what role they are suggesting for us. And I know Linda Pisner, at the invitation of the Natural Resources Committee, had also talked to them, and perhaps will have some information to share with us as well.
But if you look, it's on a yellow sheet and it has draft written above it. It's the yellow sheet that I handed out. And it's a committee amendment, and I believe it's a unanimous committee amendment to a resolve, which again is LD 1310. And it was, that original bill was entitled "Resolve to Establish the Blue Ribbon Commission to Examine the Legal and Policy Implications of Groundwater Extraction." The committee amendment strikes and replaces that entire bill with another resolve, and this resolve directs the Water Resources Planning Committee of the Land and Water Resource Council in coordination with the Office of the Attorney General and the Citizen Trade Policy Commission to look at to do an examination of the legal impacts of international trade agreements on the state's ability to manage its groundwater resources. And it lists a number of things that includes consequences of permitting foreign companies to extract groundwaters as a major one. It also lists a number of things that this group should look into, including property rights related to the ownership of groundwater, the various common law doctrines that are associated with groundwater, and other natural resources other than groundwater that may be impacted as well. It then provides that the Water Resources Planning Committee should present a report on this to the Natural Resource Committee by January 1st, 2010, so the first of next year, second regular session of the 124th. And along with that, it can provide implementing legislation if any is needed. It also, I think, provides some language that would allow this commission to use money that it receives from outside sources to help fund bringing experts and others into the debate or into the assessment. Again, I don't think the commission's not a lead agency on this, but it will work in conjunction with the Water Resource Planning Committee.
Great.
I think that's really all I know about it at this point. It's waiting for a fiscal note, and otherwise it will be coming out to the full legislature soon, I would imagine.
The Natural Resources Committee had asked me to come down to them to make a presentation to explain in 10 minutes or less what the potential impact of trade treaties would be on water extraction regulation. And we had actually a very engaging discussion about it, and warming my heart especially was a comment by Representative Knapp to the effect that this is an issue that the entire legislature should know about. I think they took a bill that was very broad in terms of the things that were to be studied, and they really wanted it focused on the trade issue. And to me, I think two of the key things that we need to keep in mind here, and I think we can have, although the Water Resources Committee, as Curtis points out, is the lead agency, partly that's because they have some money. They're also central in the water issues. But the committee, the Natural Resources Committee, would like there to be some public hearings for us to take information. And the work product, I think, that they have in mind is something that would explain what the treaty issues are. And one of the things that I press whenever I talk about this is the legislature should always do what they think is the right policy, but that they really should have some advice about how best to protect their prerogatives to legislate. And so that's one of the aspects that they were very interested in. There are some obvious issues non-discrimination is one, transparency of regulation is another, but those are things that I think we could put a little energy into. I also spoke to Peter Riggs about this. He is willing to support to the extent that he's able to do that. And he mentioned a project at the Vermont Law School that is just beginning to get going, the timing of which may not fit with our January 1 report date here, but that relates to water extraction issues. So there's definitely a lot of interest in doing some sort of moderately in-depth study. I think we have to be mindful of making our product accessible to legislators. That was one of the messages that came back pretty clearly. This is a complicated area. Legislators, our citizen legislature is overburdened with issues and complexities, and so something that's useful to them is important to keep in mind as well. So there's sort of, it's a funny three-legged stool. If you look at it, they're looking for advice from the Attorney General's office about the legal aspects of this. Clearly they're looking for weigh-in from this commission because of expertise, and then we have the Water Resources Committee. So some kind of coordination around how we set up a work plan for this going forward would seem to be appropriate.
We've passed some bills through already around water, and I saw one the other day on extraction from around wells. Are we in danger of getting some things through here that may not jive with constitutional or international treaties? I mean, I've seen two of these water bills that came through about water extraction from wells. And I don't know if anyone's following the current bills. So there might be a possibility that things are passing now would end up being in violation after a subcommittee met this summer. And I don't know who's vetting those bills as they go through presently.
There was a question to that effect. I think that from the committee, I think that our office has always said to the legislature, do what you think you need to do, what's the right thing to do from a policy perspective. And so but certainly being mindful of any constitutional limitations on that. The investor challenge provisions, to the extent that they apply, do have an expropriation claim that's somewhat comparable to the takings analysis that we're used to under the state and federal constitution. So that's something that we would be mindful of in any event. But I think there's a distinct difference between property rights and regulation. We're not talking about, telling people that they can't, that it's no longer their property, but that we regulate how they use their property under certain circumstances. There has been discussion, though, of changing the absolute dominion rule in Maine, which basically says if your land sits over the water, it's yours. And that's not something that I could, changing that I could address sort of off the cuff, if you will.
The membership of the Water Resources Planning Committee and who is on that?
It's probably obvious to the legislators on the panel, but the reason that it ended up in this odd sort of what I'm referring to as three-legged stool approach is because the commission approach that the original bill contemplated cost money, and so we don't have any money. So we want this to be done, but we don't want to spend money, so we don't have a commission, and we have a group that's been designated to go forth and do it. So I don't think we should be shy about asserting our interest in the subject matter.
Good. Great. Jane?
In answer to Sarah's question, in the statute, it's the Commissioner of Agriculture, the Commissioner of Conservation, Commissioner of Environmental Protection, Commissioner of Human Services, Commissioner of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife, Commissioner of Marine Resources, Commissioner of Transportation, Commissioner of DECD, and the Director of the State Planning Office.
Wow, what a group, huh?
So there you go.
I'm bringing this to you all today because I wanted you to know what was going on, the work that we will be tasked to do going forward. I personally think this is very exciting for us as a state to be able to engage in this work, and for the Commission to be a lead player in this.